What I find amazing is right in our face on the TV. I found this online. Somebody had posted on one of the Christian things, and they were all upset about it. I don't think they realize how much reality is in that coin. It's in our face. You know how we talk about Yahweh being the evil one and all? They have actually done it up on a coin. You've got the serpent, the dragon, Lucifer, and Satan. You know, I was telling y'all, and Peter, he literally calls JC Lucifer. That's the only place in the whole entire scriptures where anybody really calls him Lucifer. Isaiah in 14, that's not really Lucifer in Hebrew, but where Peter calls him the morning star is actually Lucifer in Latin. Then you have Satan, and then in the other one, they've got the downward thing with the morning star on it again, and the Trinity stuff. But what they're taking into account there is not really Father like we worship Father that's in heaven. This is the earthly. This is Yahweh that they're portraying. But I thought that was real interesting. That's really in our face, even on crazy TV shows like that. I watched one episode of that just to see what they were doing with this show, and basically what they were doing is trying to make Lucifer look like the good guy. There's going to be some other stuff in this one tonight that kind of ties everything together. Because we know that this was all planned and done by Yahweh in the Old Testament. That was my problem for a long time. I could see the evil, but I couldn't see the person causing it. When you're so deep into it, it's really hard to tell where it's coming from. Because I kept thinking Yahweh was the good guy, to begin with. But you learn a lot over the years. Sheol and destruction, or Abaddon, are before Yahweh. How much more the hearts of the sons of men? And when you actually look at a mechanical of that in Hebrew, it's like Sheol and Abaddon are in your purpose, Yahweh. Therefore, because of my son of man, is what it literally says. My son Adam, or my son of man. They don't show us that part. In front of means in the sight of. In your view, it is a word for they're doing Yahweh's purpose. It's like they're set up by him to do his purpose. It's basically what the sentence is saying. And we know from definition, Abaddon is father plus destroy. When you break it down into a compound word, it's like two different words, and it means destroy, or unalive, or blot out father is what it means. Destroy him, get rid of him. This is something most people don't know. In Italy, all the priests in Italy have the title of Don, in abbreviation for Domus, which is Lord, and therefore they're addressed as Reverend Don, and they also call themselves Abbas, or fathers. So they literally fit the description of Abaddon. Same thing. But most people would never know that. Especially they call the vicar of Christ that. The Pope. And to Yahweh, this whole entire thing is a coat rolled in blood. In Isaiah 9. And you shall increase the nation, you shall make a great joy great, and shall rejoice before you as in the joy of the harvest. As men rejoice when they divide the spoil. That doesn't sound like a good thing, dividing the spoil. For you will break the yoke of the burden, and the staff off the shoulder, and the rod of the oppressor, as in the days of Midian. For every boot of trampling in tumult, the coat rolled in blood shall be used for burning and fuel for the fire. So he's planning on using this whole plot as a deception. For a child is born, and unto us a son is given, and unto us, and the rule on his shoulder, and his name is called Wonderful, a Counselor, Strong God, Father of Continuity. This is kind of an odd version here. Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his rule, peace there shall be no end, and the throne of David, and over his reign, to establish and sustain with his right ruling, and with his righteousness from now on, and evermore the ardor or the envy or jealousy of Yahweh of hosts does this. So he's taking credit for it. But he's really, if you read that carefully, he's actually saying that this is a deception. It's a coat rolled in blood, just like the one of Joseph's coat was. And who do we have in Zechariah? In 3:1. And he showed me Yahushua, the high priest, standing before the messenger of Yahweh, and Satan standing at his right hand to be an adversary to him. So we're literally talking about, they say Yahushua is JC or Jesus, and then Satan is standing at his right hand. So who would that be to be an adversary to him? Who's his right hand man? Mark 4. And there was once among the path, and the word is sown, and they hear it. Satan immediately comes and takes away the word that is sown in them. So Jesus is giving the words of the Father, but immediately Satan is snatching up the words. And then we can see how that literally falls into Revelation 2:24, because John is telling us, but unto you I say, the rest are Thyatira, as many as have not his teaching, such as have not come to know the deep things of Satan, are they as they say, I do not cast any further or any other burden, nevertheless, than what you have. Hold fast. Okay, when he's saying that, he's telling you what they're going to say. And I have a theory that Revelation was written before the New Testament. And I know that's going to sound strange, but I think they were warning about what was coming in the New Testament and the deception that would happen between the two Jesuses. It's like, because in Acts 15:28, this is the exact same words that they used in that council of Jerusalem when they said, for it seemed good to the Holy Spirit and to us to put not one greater burden on you than these necessary things. Exact same words as is said in Revelation 2:24. What do we see today? This is St. Peter's Cathedral in Rome, and it has nothing to do with Jesus. Nothing. It's all Peter. Peter, Peter, Peter. Peter's altar, Peter's burial bones, Peter's chair, Peter's statue. Everything in this building revolves around Peter. Peter's altar thing, the four-horned altar. What are they prostrate on the floor bowing to? They're bowing to Peter's stuff. They're not bowing to Jesus. And they do this every day. In fact, then what they do with Jesus in the Mass is they want to unalive him over and over and over. They just cannot get it in their minds. What they're actually doing is just unaliving him with the sacrifice every time they do the Mass. And even Paul says, always carrying around the dead body of Christ. Now that just does not sound right. I think a lot of Isaiah is talking about all this, especially like 28 when it says the elder and the oldest one, and then the one that's prophet, this tale that's teaching the lies. I think that was Peter and Paul, because Peter was the elder, and he says so in his books. But Isaiah 14:19, but you have been thrown from your burial site like an abominable branch, like a garment of those who were unalived, thrust through with the sword, who go down to the stones of the pit and are like a trampled corpse. You are not joined with them in the burial place, for you have destroyed your land and have unalived your people. Let the seed of the evildoers never be mentioned. That's what they basically have built, is a giant tomb. It's that's all it is a tomb. And he is separated from everybody else in there. His is alone by itself. Because those stairs you see right there in that dug in looking place, right there under the altar, that is literally where Peter's bones are, directly under the altar. And then the chains are hanging there. When you go down, you can see the chains. And the Pope goes down. He's the only one that's allowed to go down in there, but he goes down in there and prays There's pictures of St. Francis down in there praying. And we see this, I think this is kind of mirrored in Mark 5, 1 through 4, where he said, "And it came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gerasenes. And when Jesus had stepped out of the boat, immediately there met him out among the tombs a man with an unclean spirit. He lived among the tombs, and no one could bind him any more, not even with a chain, for he had often been bound with shackles and chains, but he wrenched the chains apart, and he broke the shackles in pieces, and no one had the strength to subdue him." I think this is what he's talking about, to be honest. I think it was like a parable and a story that he was telling us. And this is another card I had on the same thing, where they say that, "But unto you I say, the rest who are in Thyatira, as many as have not this teaching, such have not come to know the deep things of Satan, as they say, I do not cast upon you any other burden." And it's the same thing they say in Acts 15:28. And it was Peter that said it specifically. When we look at Strong's for Simon, we see all these different names. We see Peter, which equals a rock or stone. We see Peter was one of the apostles. Peter also called the Zealotes or the Canaanites. Simon, father of Judas, that betrayed Jesus. And that's a fallacy right there, because there is no son of in the text. They added the son of. Judas was not the son of Simon, because son of is not in the Greek. Simon the tanner, Simon the Pharisee, Simon of Cyrene, who carried the cross, Simon the cousin of Jesus, son of Cleopas, Simon the leper, so called distinguished from other names. And I wonder, how many of these are all the same person? I mean, I kind of have that feeling that they kind of pulled a fast one on us, and I'll show you why. Luke 7, 37 through 50. "And behold, a woman of the city, who was a sinner, when she learned that he was reclining at the table with the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster flask of ointment, and standing behind him at her feet, weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears, and wiped them with her hair of her head, and kissed his feet, and anointed them with ointment. Now when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, If this man were a prophet, he would have known who or what sort of woman this is that's touching him, for she is a sinner. And Jesus answered him, and guess who he answers? Simon, I have something to say to you. And he answered, Say it, teacher. So who is this Simon? Is that not Simon Peter? I mean, he was the teacher. And a certain moneylender had two debtors. And he said, one owed 500 denarii and the other 50, and they could not pay. He canceled the debt of both. Now which of the men will love him more? And Simon answered, The one, I suppose, for whom he canceled the larger debt. And he said to him, You have judged rightly. Then turning toward the woman, he said, Simon, do you see this woman? I entered your home, and you gave me no water for my feet, but she has wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You gave me no kiss, but from the time I came in, she has not ceased to kiss my feet. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she has anointed my feet with ointment. Therefore I tell you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. But he who is forgiven little loves little. And he said to her, Your sins are forgiven. And then those who were at the table with him began to say in themselves, Who is this who even forgives sins? And he said to the woman, Your faith has saved you. Go in peace. He tells us about the rock. He named him Peter the rock. And he said in Luke 8, 6 through 8, And some fell on the rock, and it grew up, and it withered away, because it had no moisture. And some fell among the thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked it. And then some fell among the good soil, and grew and yielded 100-fold. And he said these things, he called out, He who has ears to hear, let him hear. So he's telling us a whole lot in all these. I think that Simon that he went to his house that was a Pharisee is the same one. Because I showed y'all last night that Cleopas that said it was better for one person to unalive than for a whole nation to go under is the same one and the same when you look at the Jewish writing as Simon Peter. It's the same person. He was a high priest. And he also told him that Satan had demanded to sift Peter like wheat. He said in Luke 22:31, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan demanded to have you, that he might sift you like wheat. And we know who does the sifting. When we look at Amos in the Old Testament, you can tell that it's Yahweh that does that. It's in Amos 9:9. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but that's a very interesting chapter if you want to see how we're trapped in this place. Amos 9 is a good place to look to see how we're in a prison world here of Yahweh's making, because he tells you in there how he's going to hold you here, and if you climb up the mountain, he's going to grab you down. If you try to get out the top, he's going to grab you. It's a really good chapter to read. But Amos 9:9, it says, For look, I am commanding, and I shall sift the house of Israel among the nations as one sifts a sieve, yet not a grain falls to the ground. So he's telling us what he's going to do right there. But I wanted to point out Amos 4:9. This was another card I had on the sifting thing. Yahweh tells us in that verse that he is going to set his eyes on them for evil and not good. He does that over and over. What is Yahweh? Some kind of AI computer? Boston, I think that he's tied into the computers, yes. I have a whole nother thing. Artists, once we have discerned the truth out of this, where are we going? Still checking more. I do this because I want people to be able to see what has happened, because a lot of people are not seeing any of it. So I'm trying to take it to the public and show them. A lot of us may know some of it, and we need to start sharing this just far and wide as we can. Because there's so many people that don't understand that there are two Jesuses, that Father in heaven is good and he loves all of us. He's not some wrathful person that's going to come down here and try to unalive all of us. That's why I do what I'm doing. There's writing indicates to us that it was Simon Peter that also wrote the Zohar in 70 CE, and it was Shimon bar Yaakov, and it means Simon, son of God, lives. And Zohar literally meant splendor, and it's the same word that is in the Old Testament for strange fire. I understand a lot of people are not going to catch the two Jesus thing yet. You know, that takes a lot of really studying this out to see that. You can see why. You can tell that it's like that's Peter's altar. That is the first page in the Zohar, and it's like everything in there mirrors that book. Revelation 9:13, and the sixth messenger did sound a herald, a voice out of the four horn of the altar of gold that is before God. I think this is the altar they're talking about, the four-horned altar. Zohar just means splendor or radiance. The actual book actually surfaced to the public in the 13th century, but the work is ascribed to have come from Simon Peter, they think. And we see this also in the Old Testament too. Most people don't know it, but in Genesis 38, 27 through, it's like they talk about the scarlet thread on the hand. It's the same thing. And then Genesis 38:30, afterward the broker came out of the scarlet thread on the hand, and his name was called Zohar. And he was the house, the master of Mitzrayim, and Mitzrayim means double straits, which is the only place that has the narrow double straits is Italy. And actually, Shimon is, when you say Samuel, Shimon is El is what it means. Shimon is thought to be like one of the sacred names for the actual deities in the Old Testament. And when the witch of Endor and Samuel comes up from the ground, she said, "I see an Elohim." Is what she meant. It's like because his name means Simon or Shimon is El or is God. So that's what Samuel means. This one is really should wake people up too. They talk about the people that turned the world upside down in the scriptures, and literally Peter, Philip, and Bartholomew were all crucified upside down. And I think this is indicative of that. It's like in Isaiah 29:16, surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's day, and shall the work say unto him that made it, he made me not? Or shall the thing framed say unto him that framed it, he had no understanding? And they say this in Acts about Peter and them, but to finding them, they dropped. And some of the brethren to this day are crying out, they are those who have turned the world upside down, have come here too. But you see it also in Psalms and in Kings. And actually, Peter is where you get the source of the as above, so below, is actually from Peter. It comes from the Acts of Peter. And it says, when they had hung him up after the manner he desired, and began again to say, ye men unto whom it belongs to hear, hearken to what I shall declare unto you. At this special time, as I hang here, learn ye the mystery of nature, the beginning of all things, what it was. For the first man whose race I bear in mine appearance fell head downward, and showed forth a manner of birth such as was not hereto, for it was dead and having no motion. Then he, being pulled down, who was cast the first state down upon the earth, established the whole disposition of things, being hanged in an image of the creation, whereas he made things of the right hand and the left hand, and the left hand and the right hand, and changed about all the marks of nature, so that he thought those things were not fair to be fair, and those things that were truth evil to be good, concerning which the Lord hath said the mystery, unless you make things of the right hand of those of the left, and those of the left as of the right, and these things which are above as these things below, and those that are behind as those that are before, ye shall not have knowledge of the kingdom. So basically, he's the one that did the inversion. This comes from Simon Peter. And they said that he wanted to be hung upside down because he did not want to be unalived in the same manner as Jesus was. He didn't. They say that he said he didn't think he was worthy, but according to this, it was a making of this world, a flipping of this world, according to his own book here. And I told y'all this part that he's the only one that called Jesus the morning star, and that is also in 2 Peter 1:19. And so we have a prophetic word confirmed, which you do well to heed, a light that shines in a dark place until the day dawns and the morning star rises in your heart. And morning star in Latin is Lucifer. And this is how they crown him. And I think the reason that they crown him like this is because he is the type of the Kabbalah, because he's the one that wrote the Zohar. And they dress him up like they have, I think, 2 holidays a year now. And this is some of their lovely work they have here. That's their secondary church that they built in Rome. It looks like a serpent. Even has the snake eyes and matches their Kabbalah staves and stuff all match. And interesting enough, something I didn't know till I started researching this, that there's a list of 58 New Testament references in the Zohar. All those verses that right there are listed in there. I didn't know that. I read it, but somehow I missed that. I don't know why. Probably because I was younger when I read it. And this is just a picture of Pope Francis actually praying to Peter's bones down in the bottom of that thing, the little, I guess you'd say like a sub level they have there under the altar. This is important because we're still dealing with this dragon right now. People don't realize that this is the dragon's tail. When we see in Revelation 9:19, for their power is in their mouth and their tails, for their tails were like unto serpents and had heads, and with them they do hurt. Okay, the word for tails literally means a succession of persons, that this continues on and on and on until the last one. And I have a feeling we're on the last one because when Pope Francis stood up to be inaugurated that night, after they had the election and all, he said, "I am Peter the Roman." And I thought that was very interesting that he would use that terminology. But you can see, there they are. There's your succession we've been dealing with from the very start. But I hope y'all understand what the gravity of what I'm showing you is, because everybody thinks that they don't think there's a lot of power in that country, but it's the smallest nation in the world is the Vatican, and every world official, when the minute they get elected, where do they run? Who do they go seek an audience with? There's a lot more going on there than what we think. And I think they're part of the small hats. I think it's the third temple.